Okay, welcome to episode 11 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin with Foreign Gamers. Sometimes team managers get mad at me. Some team managers love me, but you just don't get to hear that side of the story, you know. I'm a nice guy, what can I tell you? Montecristo over there. Sometimes team managers like him too. You never get to hear that either, though. Montecristo, commentator, works for CLG, makes excuses when they lose. Sometimes berates teams who beat them conclusively with excellent League of Legends. Just that sort of guy, what can I tell you? Oh, and we have a guest here, special guest. Some people like to call him the best top laner, not called Flame, Dyrus, Balls. I don't know the name of the guy from LMQ. There's a lot of names on that list, but some people like to call him the best. Pseudo-Indian, sort of American, now playing for Dignitas top laner, ZionSpartan.
We like to call him Bizarro Flame, though.
Yeah, that's right. We call him Bizarro. Did you know that was your name?
Yeah, I heard about that. I went back and watched it. Like,
you
wait,
like
why
it?
Am I called Bizarro Flame? And
It's
I'm
not
like,
good.
hey, maybe it's a compliment. I'm like, well, wait, this is on Summoning Insight. There's got to be a catch. And yeah.
Well, let's get into that then. Actually, let's start with like your style of play, because this is something that I've noticed as you've got like a whole Reddit reputation where people will just say in a sentence something like this. Either someone will say like, "Oh, ZionSpartan's really underrated," all the criticism will be like, "Yeah, but you know, he just always like tries to pick carry top laners and he won't play the meta," and that's kind of why we joke that you're like the Bizarro Flame, because that's like the criticism people always give of Flame. Okay, what do you think of this reputation? Is it earned at all?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that's the way I've played up until like probably this season, like this split. Like even the first half of last split, I was trying to play carries definitely, and yeah, it was kind of similar to what Flame did during OGN Summer like a year ago, where he just played like a Kali top and things like that, and just completely carry. And I kind of had that similar style, but that was like playing against teams in NA that weren't as strong, and that's why it was extremely effective. And it definitely didn't work as well against some of the better teams, but I've definitely adapted my play a lot, and I think I've gotten much better than I was before.
Was that? I think you've said something similar, Monty, on the past episodes. Was that an exaggerated reputation, or do you think it was spot on at the time?
I know. I think just from watching us play, that was spot on at the time, but I think it has changed a little bit. Obviously, I think that you look at the champion pool now; it's more meta, and also I think the champion pool has fallen into Zion's favor also.
With like Jax and
Aurelia
and stuff like this, yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
So it's all good.
Oh, it's all good. I see.
ZionSpartan's hit his power spike. New team.
Oh, well,
he's out of bad teammate prison.
It's a good coincidence that he's on the show now, then, Monty. So you're not ripping him, you know.
Well, no, and he says that he has to carry, but he also had to play these carries because he was also fighting against his own teammates. So he's free. The chains have been broken. How does it feel?
No comment. I think there's a lot of other issues, and I think
I do too.
No comment on that.
Well, I mean, we always joke and say that people who are good players on teams that aren't doing well are in bad teammate prison. And we don't mean bad as in these are bad people. These are probably wonderful people. If you want to have cocoa and a slice of cake, they're probably exactly the right guy. But if you want to win LCSNA, it's probably pretty hard being on some of the teams you've been on, right?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't even think the biggest issue was related to the players on the team. It was just kind of the support staff that we had. I didn't realize how big of a difference like having the right setup to be a successful team is until I.
Well, thank you. See, you're here to make me not look stupid because.
No, in many ways, that's why I got him on the show. You know.
Yeah, people just like to take my comments in isolation. Where I said that swapping you guys in, we talked about this last week on the show too, where. We like Loco and Thor and I were saying that this is was an upgrade definitely to your skill ceiling, but more than that, what I said in addition to the other comments I made, which was they need to fix the shot calling issues. That's the main issue here, and you guys are doing a good job of that. I mean, in terms of your lane swaps right now, I think you guys are rocking it. So I am curious though, because I know Cumley and I've known him for like 2 years. Ever since he first moved over, he used to work with me for GGC. He casted tournaments with me. What exactly? How is Skara and Cumley like coming to these roles? And you have a life coach now as well. I think everybody would be really interested to hear more about the infrastructure that Dignitas has put in place to help you guys win.
Do you guys want me to go into that right now? I don't want to get too far into specifics because that would go in like to the dynamic of our team, and obviously other NALCS players are going to be watching this. So
okay, just give us whatever state secrets you can let out now.
All right, so yeah, basically having a support staff is really nice, and who the cast is right now is we've got Melixia, he's your life coach, and honestly, we haven't been speaking with him that much recently because we haven't really had any issues. Like, we're the first place team in the NALCS. We're not going to be having all these personal issues or anything like that. So there hasn't been we haven't been talking with him that much, but I've definitely been acquainted with him. He came by the house and just had a nice chat with everyone, and if anyone had any issues, they could talk with him. And it's just kind of nice to have that life coach when you just need someone to talk to and you have these issues and you have nobody else to go to. Because it's kind of hard to have a mediator on your team because everyone's biased. And when you have that kind of life coach, you can just sit on the outside of things and kind of just like look in and just be that person who listens to you. It's really nice to have. And yeah, and then we have Scar and Cumley, who are basically the people who help us with getting better at winning. I mean, they're not the reason we win, but they help us. They help bring out our winning sides, so to speak. Basically, Scar just kind of... He's kind of more... Cumley's more of the macro analyst person where we'll talk about, like, rotations, that kind of thing. And then Scar is more kind of... He talks more about, like, the mechanics approach to us. Like, he can work well with Shifter because he played mid before, and while he wasn't as skilled per se as Shifter, he definitely understands the lane very well.
I mean, you don't have to have the mechanics to still offer like valuable advice or understand the game on a conceptual level. That's for sure. So one of the things we've been talking about on the show a lot is that it's a transition a lot of the time from player to coach that can get kind of rocky because all of a sudden you move from this position of equality into randomly like a position of authority and power. And so how's that been working with Scara? Because Reggie said recently that TSM wants to get a new coach because he doesn't think that he or the odd one, due to past relationships, can have that authority with the team to be in that role.
I definitely agree that it's kind of hard to be a coach if you were previously a player and players don't respect you, but honestly that's not the case with Scara. Like, everyone on the team really respects Scara and listens to what he has to say, and as long as the players can do that, then there's no issue if he was previously a player. And I feel like everything Scara has to say is very insightful and very helpful, and I think it just helps us get better. Yeah, we've definitely... I think a lot of it also comes down to just having these people who help you effectively set up your schedule. Scara definitely manages all of that, and yeah, I think our current schedule is a lot more effective than what I used to have on Coast and what I had before. And honestly, a lot of being a good professional team and having a winning team is having the right setup. You need the right formula, you need the right schedule, you need the right mindset, you need the right support staff, and you need people improving the right way. It doesn't matter how much you scrim, it matters how well you scrim. And recently I've been seeing how effective like scrimming the right way can help you improve, and I hadn't been doing that before.
When we were talking about your style of play when you were in Coast, was there a degree to which, like what Monty's saying here, like the champion pool just fits what you want to do now anyway, like split pushing all the time? Is there a degree to which had you ever noticed anything when people made those criticisms of you back in Coast? Like, maybe I have to change my style of play? Because it's been a debate about the real Flame as to whether or not he should still be trying to be a carry top laner, or whether he has teammates who can carry as well. Like, how did you see that whole situation?
How I feel about carry top laners right now, without going too far into detail, is that they can be successful, but with carry top laners, I feel that playstyle is a high risk, high reward kind of playstyle, and as a professional team, you never want to have increased risk. You want to do the safer thing, and that's why playing Jax, playing Shyvana, there's a much better chance of winning because these champions are so strong, and it's very easy to become strong, and it's very hard for you to fall off. You'll always be that tank. You'll always be that carry, and I think Flame is a great player, but what happened was all the other teams got a lot better and the meta shifted, and running these carry top laners, not only I feel is getting the 1v1 really important with a lot of these champions like Akali, Riven, the things he used to play. It just requires getting all that solo XP and getting that farm. And the way top lane is played, you can very easily get denied. So
Okay. So as you're saying that, though, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's right to a degree. If you were on the best team in the world, then you would want to play the safe style and always get the good lane and never be in like a lane mismatch or a 1v2 that's going to wreck you. But if you're on a team like Coast, sometimes you're playing a team who is just across the board better than you. Maybe the player you're playing in the top lane is the only player you might actually have a winning matchup against. Isn't it worth taking a risk and going for one of those matchups in the chance that you get a good one and you don't get 1v2 as it would be nowadays?
Yeah, but the thing is, you never want to play with the mentality that a team is better than you. And if you play with the mentality,
I think I've just discovered the problem that Coast had here, mate. Like, you don't want to ever play the mentality that the team's better. Okay, unpack this for me. Unpack it for me.
I'm just
Let me see where you're going.
The best teams in the world, they'll play whatever the safest pick is because that has the highest chance of success. And running things that can just get screwed over like carries is not what you want in the top lane. And on Coast, we had a lot of other issues, and that wasn't just, hey, I need to play a carry to carry, but yeah, I definitely did try. I definitely did try to play carries, and I feel like that wasn't necessarily a result of me being on Coast and feeling the need to carry. It's just that I really enjoyed playing those type of champions, and I feel like I've just learned a lot from my time in the pro scene, and I've matured a lot as a person because there's definitely, if I, like a year ago on Coast, if I went back and we had Elements as our coach at the time, and a lot of people felt like, hey, Elements wasn't a good coach, but honestly, I just what I'd realized is that it wasn't really Elements being so poor of a coach. It was us not taking the game the right way, and I feel man, I just kind of like flew off there. But basically, the point I'm trying to make is
okay, rein it back in, Zion. It's okay. This is like when you used to be off split pushing by yourself. I'm going to rein you in here. I'm going to be the shot caller you always needed. You know?
Thorin, yeah, I need you to tell me when I need to stop split pushing. I think this is one of those times. Reel me back in here. So
I've got a question then. Let me tie this into the present, from the Coast era into the Dignitas era. So if I'm in a game now and I'm in, that awesome music, I can't even remember what the music's like in fucking. In LCS, this pick band music's always like some rad sort of like lounge cross like rock wailing guitars like so whatever that music on the pick band phase is, I'm sat there, ZionSpartan first pick, or any pick order, okay. If I see ZionSpartan pick Irelia now and I see he's going his Trinity Force build, that's because, he already had a plan. Listen, his coaches had a plan in mind. They know what lane he's going to get. He's not going to be 2v1. He knows exactly what's going on. There's all these plans in mind. It's never just because you're like, yeah, I'm just going to wreck my lane, bro.
Well, actually, it kind of is like that right now. I do
Okay.
have the freedom. I have the freedom to pick what I want, but it's just me as a person that's realized, hey, I could play these carries and I could risk the fact that we lose the game because I played a carry, or I can get really good as the more meta picks, the solid picks, and then once I've established the team and myself as a really solid player, then I can start branching out. And I think that's where I want to go from, instead of starting from the point of, hey, I'm going to play these carries and carry my team when we're not even a winning team in the first place. And yeah, I just want to, before I go off and become this crazy carry top laner, first learn the basics, because there's definitely a lot of room for me to improve from there.
No, that's good advice for the youth of today. Before you go off and become the best carry top laner, just maybe learn the basics, start playing the meta a bit, work with your team. I'm liking it. I'm liking where you're going this. You're a new man. Okay, so...
Honestly,
Wait, I have a question,
Yeah, okay.
though.
Go
I
on,
want to go
jump in.
back to the Elements thing that we were talking about, because you said you've now realized the importance of having a good support staff. So I want to know what happened with Elements and Alex Penn, because you had the support staff on the Coast. So why now? Why is this the right support staff? Why is this better for you?
Okay, so I'll start this individual with each person. Elements, I think Elements was a really fired up person, and he was as dedicated as he felt the team was. And at the beginning, he was a great coach. He sat there, made notes, tried to tell us how to improve, and he helped set up a schedule for us. But as a team, we weren't motivated enough to win. And when we started losing, everything just went on the downhill, and Elements also lost his motivation. And I thought he was a good coach, and with the team on a downswing, and that resulted in him becoming less motivated and us just getting worse and worse.
So your idea of a good coach is somebody who loses motivation alongside the team instead of keeping people's spirits up?
Well, he tried to keep us. I think Elements was a good coach. I just feel like we just had a really poor atmosphere on the team, and that just led to a lot of issues. And on Coast with Alex Penn, he wasn't the kind of analyst that we needed. He was, I think Elements or like Skara or Cumley are more of those analysts, but Alex Penn was more sort of the person who understood the picks and bans. He's the kind of person who could do the research, and we didn't have an analyst who could utilize Alex Penn well with the information he could provide, is what I feel.
Okay, that's an interesting way to phrase it, though. Like, I've noticed, okay, because you're a nice guy, you say the same things that the other players do, but you say them in different language, okay? So I don't want people to get confused here. When you say he's not really the sort of analyst we needed, okay, he was doing this analysis, but then earlier on you were saying people weren't really, like, listening or, like, they weren't applying it. Like, if any analyst, okay, is separated from a coach, they just do like they crunch numbers, they give you picks. Maybe in Korea they use these picks here, maybe they use these lanes here. He would just come with this dossier, like, Zion, I've got your here you go, mate. He'd like get the papers. Here's your papers for this week, and you'd be like, great. I'll just store them in this garbage bin here. Let's talk after the game. See ya. Like, people weren't taking on board the things he said, or was he just not in line with what the team wanted to do as a team? What do you think it was?
Okay, so I just think Alex, he was kind of a specialist of the picks and bans. He understood what like the priority champions and how to effectively win in picks and bans. And then he also understood like level ones and that kind of thing really well. But he didn't really understand like the flow of the game. Like we needed someone. We had someone for that. That was Alex. We didn't have someone who could understand the game in terms of what to do to win. And he kind of had the nice setup for us, like the pre-game stuff, like picks and bans, level ones, that kind of thing. But we didn't have like a Skara. We didn't have someone who understood the game well enough and who could teach us that way of the game so that we could use that as like a formula to win. And that's what kind of Skara and Cumley have taught us, okay. I'd say. But I think we already had a decent understanding, but they definitely helped steer us in a better direction.
So there's some good stuff I want to get into here, like later on in the Dignitas era. But before we go any further, there's this really, it's disgusting. It's absolutely scandalous, this rumor that's out there about you, and we need to address it right now at the beginning of the show. Some people have been spreading this horrible rumor that you were the shot caller in Coast. Like, can we just dispel this right now? You weren't doing any shot calling.
Okay, so I did.
Oh my God.
I did call things, but I wasn't the official shot caller. It wasn't like,
okay.
Blame Zion for every bad decision Coast has made, because that wasn't it. Like,
who do we blame?
There's no one to blame.
My bad. Come on. Okay.
When mistakes happen, it's a team happen.
Okay.
It's a team mistake. All right.
So when Zion makes a call, when Zion makes a call and it loses the game, in many ways it was equally Nintendude X's fault for following that call. I'm just asking, I get curious. What can I tell you? I'm a curious guy.
I'm just okay. When bad calls are made, yeah, the person knows he messed up, but I can't go to Coast and be like, yeah, I made every single bad call and I made us lose. Like, no, it wasn't me making all the calls. We were a team and people made calls. I wasn't the only one who made calls. I feel on a winning team, everyone has good information and everyone sees things a little differently, and that allows some people to see better things sometimes. And when they see that better thing, they'll call it. And it's not one person who's all knowing, who's all powerful, who's like, this is how we'll win the game. You do this, this, and this, and that's how you win. No,
okay, but this is a general topic I want to get into. So I wanted to ask you about your specific situation so you could give people like some insight, because obviously it's going to be different going into Dignitas. So I want to frame it like this. When people say that, because it's a common thing, they say, no, we all take part in the calls, like no one person makes the call, we all give information. Like, that could all be true. Like, maybe everyone gives their call, or maybe in a certain scenario, okay, let's say Shifter's the one who's really fed and he's winning his lane. Maybe he makes a call that he wants a jungler come, or you're going to group mid or whatever. Now, say in another game, Zion's carrying in and he's making the calls, or maybe the jungler is telling you when to do the objective, when to do the Baron, when to do the Dragon. Okay, here, you notice, yeah, everyone's having a separate role, but someone is making the ultimate call. Because I actually think, tell me if I'm wrong here, it's actually impossible to make a decision with more than one person. As in, other people can contribute to the decision, but ultimately one person activates the decision. Let's say I say to Monty now, you want to go for some food? And he's like, yeah, sure. In fact, let's do a role play here, Monty. You want to go for some food after the show?
Let's have a great lunch together.
Okay, cool. Let's have lunch. We could go to like that burger place.
Let's go have some burgers.
Right, Monty just made the decision right there. It sounded like I was making it, I suggested the place, but Monty actually made the call. Now, if Monty had said like, we could do, and then I'd have gone, I tell you what, let's go to the pancake place over the road. And he was like, yep. Again, he's just made the call again. Like, it sounded like I was. You see the way that it tricks you? But if I'd said to Monty, we'll go to that pancake place, no questions asked, now I've just made the call. Like, in this scenario, it would have been impossible for us both to make the call there, you see. One person has to eventually make some kind of catalytic moment that makes it happen. So all I'm asking is, Zion, who was the catalyst, baby? Who was the catalyst?
Okay, I'm gonna take that statement.
Yep, go on.
I had a feel. I mean, I was talking to Scar, and I'm like, okay, so obviously I don't want to get too into depth about how our communication works, but I'm like, all right,
Scar even pre-games you and gives you analysis before this show? That's pretty fucking dedicated.
I was asking him, like, okay, what should I say if we want to talk about communication? I'm like, all right. He's like, all right, you can use this comparison. And he's like, basically, just think about our communication like a story. Basically, I'm the narrator, and everyone else fills in the story. That's basically what he said. So, yeah, that's how I feel our communication works.
Well, then, to be fair, you have to take a larger responsibility if the story fucking sucks, then, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's always something you can do better when you lose, and yeah, there's just always something you can do better. Period. And yeah,
are you taking a similar kind of shot calling role in Dig roughly? I'm not asking who's going to say something in 9 minutes, this person, and then fucking TSM could be like, kill him at 8:59. Like, we just want to know roughly here.
I definitely communicate a lot on Dignitas, yeah.
Well, thanks for that information, then. Jesus. Skara, I hope he didn't leak any big information there. I know you like, prepared him well.
I can tell you
Obi-Wan
right now.
prepared you well.
That, in the early game, like, I can tell you exactly how CLG's comms work. Here we go. Okay, in the early game, we have Dexter in charge of actually calling the ganks and controlling Dragon and doing buff invades and anything that comes up. Like, he's the one who makes those kind of decisions while everybody feeds him information. Now, by the time we roll around into the mid and late game and it comes to lane assignments and like Dragon and Baron calls, it's Afro and Link. Like, I can just tell you that. We know exactly who our shot callers are. So if you're confused, like, I'm not
confused. I'm not confused at all about who our shot callers are. I definitely make a lot of calls, but I'm not the only one.
Okay.
That's how I feel about it. I can't say specifically, like, I can't say specifically this person calls this, but I definitely do make a lot of the calls, and other people also make calls.
Or won't.
He's just not.
What do you mean by
right
can't
now,
or won't?
Like, do you not want to say who the shot callers are? Or
no. I definitely do make a lot of the shot calls.
Great.
I feel about Crumbs make shot calls. I make shot calls. Kiwi make shot calls. QD is usually the kind of person that calls people off bad calls, and then Shifter, I'd say, he's more quiet, but he definitely does make some calls as well. But like I said, I don't feel like it's one person making calls.
Okay. As much as this may blow people's minds, I do try to keep a structure on this show. So I had a couple more questions about Coast, and then we can transition fully into Dig, because obviously Dig's like the main reason we got you on the show now. So one question I had about Coast was, people will look at last split and be like, wow, what a terrible season for that team. And I remember there was a time when you won the MVP and you won a couple of games. Well, that was fucking amazing, winning 2 games in a row. And people were like, wow, maybe Coast can come fourth. Maybe they can challenge for third. And obviously that turned out to be like a pipe dream. But if you actually look at Coast over the whole split, it makes sense what happened, because you barely even got into LCS. People forget that. Like, you almost lost in that promotion series, right? Who was it you played? Was it the Bishu team?
Yeah, we played C9 Tempest, and I would agree that we barely
and
made it.
It was a really by the nails sort of thing. So you might not have even been in LCS. So listen, you get into LCS, you do get some wins over big teams. You have a short period where you get it together. Overall, listen, you're saying like, listen, you know, it wasn't the players that were holding us back. It was, you know, it was communication, it was staff. That split went okay, right? It wasn't like a total disaster for the personnel you had.
Yeah, it wasn't a total disaster.
But you should needed a better team, you personally, right? You and Shifter should have been on a better team.
How I feel about Coast last split is that it was poor like staff with I feel like we had like a lot of honestly, I didn't think the players on our team were that bad. I agree Nintendude had a bad split. He didn't play so well. Obviously, like anyone can say, yeah, Nintendude, like, yeah, he didn't have a good split. And I just think a lot of what happened with Nintendude is everyone on the community was just like bagging on him, and that just made him play a lot worse.
Why did they do that? It's the way that people in the community, you know, what they do is they sort of like psychically control people in game, and then everyone says Faker's good. So as a result, Faker's like, wow, it's so easy to do this 1v5. Oh, ace, everyone. Come on, man. People, the feedback loop didn't go like this, Zion. People didn't just go, you know what, for no reason, I think Nintendo sucks. And then everyone was like, yeah, let's just say that. And then in game, he started. It's like, hey, look, we were right. Wasn't it the other way around? Didn't he start doing bad in game? And people were like, hey, that's pretty bad play. I think that's bad. Yeah, they might have gone too far, but it was the feedback loop went that way, right?
Well, yeah, basically, I agree. He was playing bad at first, and that didn't have to do anything with people bagging on him. He was just having bad games because he was just playing poorly, and then.
But it got to him psychologically, you think?
Yeah, and then I think at the I always thought he was a good player. That's why I was on a team with him for like over a year, and obviously I feel the last split was when he played his worst, and I just think all that hate just got to him, and it never allowed him to recover. I think there's times when people have bad games. I definitely had a lot of bad games. I've gotten a lot better, and the community's never been that bad towards me. They haven't said like, wow, Zion's so bad. Like, if you look at what people are saying about Nintendude now, it's like Nintendude's like Jesus Christ because
he died for our sins.
Yeah, he basically died for our sins. So Dignitas is first now, going to the promised land.
He died a lot for our sins, to be fair. You know, I think we're all going to get.
Is that why you have the Zion in your name? Because you're finally going to the promised land?
Yeah, exactly. It's all thanks to Nintendude.
Okay.
No, but
is there something about Zion? Okay, is there something about Nintendude X's play that we didn't see then? Because what's funny is, even in the midst of all the shit he got, he would every now and then make like a crazy play, and people would make a highlight of it, and they'd be like, "Wow, this is so good." What did we miss about his play? Like, what was maybe good that we couldn't see, or what got overwhelmed?
I just think over his history as a pro player, he was very innovative, and he came up with a lot of good things. And I think that when he was confident, when he was feeling good, he had just his creativity was flowing, and he came up with a lot of good picks. Like he kind of had this like fiddle jungle pick where he'd kind of build somewhat tanky, and that was actually surprisingly pretty good. And he'd just come up with new things, and he'd be ahead of the curve. Like. I remember season 2 is Olaf and Riven just being banned all the time, and no one was really playing those junglers at the time. And yeah, he was just ahead of the curve, and that's what he was really strong at.
So before we go into the dig period, I have to set the scene for Monty here, because right now Monty, it seems like almost before this show he had a change of heart. He thought like, listen, this team's top of the league. It's going to be hard to wreck him. I'm probably going to have to work my way in there with a bit of be polite, you know, start to get into things. You know, he was hoping you went out to Lord Monty has arrived. I told you all Dignitas would fall, and they have before my might. So I want to just set things up. Yeah,
he was all right. He was right about Dignitas from the beginning. Thank you.
Listen, eventually he will be right. Okay, so what did you think of Coast before, Monty? You must have thought they were a terrible team. Come on, Montecristo, the guy who loves great play, rotations, all this. What
Monty wouldn't say that to my face. He wouldn't say Coast was a terrible team to my face, right, Monty?
Coast was a terrible team, motherfucker.
My God. Could we have some elaboration on that?
No, it's just I don't think the pieces were there, and obviously, like like we said at the beginning of the show, we've gone over this. I think Zion and Shifter moving to Dignitas, we talked about how it was an upgrade in the skill ceiling, but that wasn't all they needed. And I think what Zion has said, like on this show, about the support staff helping them out and having the new coach and feeling like they've unlocked a lot of their potential is great. But I think that the right moves have been made. You proved me. I wouldn't say wrong, because I said that this is what it would take and you guys did it. But at face value, the move wasn't amazing. Then moving on, I think you guys have actually done some good work. Now, the longevity of this, I mean, you guys are first in the league, but you're only up one game, and there have only been 6 games played, and there are 28 games.
There's definitely a long road left, but
that's such an interesting way for Monty to phrase it there. You see the way he sort of skirted around it? He was like, listen, I said you guys weren't really that good. You were going to drop off. Okay, you did it. You got some wins. But for how long? And then he pulls up like an hourglass and turns it over. Like when the sand has fallen from here, then you shall return to the shares.
I think that given the evidence that we have right now, that I do think Dignitas will probably end up top 3 at the end of the split. And also, if you look at basically the success of the Dignitas support team, the success of you and Shifter moving over, and then take a look at the face value of some of these other roster changes, the fact that a lot of teams don't really have a robust support structure yet. It's hard to imagine, I think, you guys at this point dropping down lower than like TSM. Like I think LMQ is vastly overhyped. So yeah, I mean, it's an open field this season, and I think you guys will probably end up top 3 for sure.
Okay. I mean, I definitely agree. You can't count any team out, and the reason I don't want to like make such a big deal about Monty's statement is like he kind of has a lot of room for like criticism, because like Dignitas has been first at the beginning of a lot of splits, but
yeah, you guys the team went 6-0 at the beginning of, they had like a 6-game winning streak and were good at the beginning of last season, and then they just fell off hard. But I see that. I don't even see that as really a comparison right now, because the structure of the team is so different at this point that information is effectively irrelevant to me.
Yeah. I don't know.
What changed then between last week and this week, Monty, in your opinion?
More consistency.
No, but okay, so your initial statement was like it didn't change the problems they had with shot calling. Yeah, they've got more skill, but that, where's the shot calling? That's the problem they had before. And in the first week, they were doing really well. And then since then, they've only played like 2 games or something. So what has changed for you in that time period of 2 games? Did you see something in those games that like...
Yeah. I think it's just the lane swapping and the kind of warding that they've been doing, I think, has been impressive. And so like it's just the more information that's been made available, seeing some of these games with their lane swap play and seeing how well it's been executed has pushed me in that direction.
Because here's the thing, okay.
Because like you could say LMQ too, like obviously they lost a couple games this week, but I think that they were just vastly overhyped after the first week of play, considering that they showed significant cracks in their early game strategy, and CLG should have beaten them if we hadn't mega through, right? So,
because the thing was, yeah, go ahead.
I actually agree with you somewhat about LMQ that they're overrated in the fact that they're a really strong team. Where I feel they're strong is they have I feel they have somewhat of a good early plan. Like, for example, they ran that Nunu jungle against Cloud9, and they had a really good early strategy. But it seems mid-game or late game, if they fall behind, they rely on Xiao to get like some sort of pick or split push to get ahead, really, and to close out the game. And it seems they're kind of lost when it comes to closing out the game in general.
So here's a good comparison point.
They also fall behind early, like really hard a lot of the time. Their lane swaps are no bueno.
So I think LMQ's a good team to illustrate the difference. Okay, so LMQ looked like they were winning on skill and like just team fighting and stuff like this, okay, individual performances. And that sort of thing is the sort of thing that you can say has like a time limit on it. Because if another team figures out how you play or how to neutralize one player or what to avoid at one part of the game, then that advantage goes away. But if you look at the Dignitas team, okay, initially, like with your comment initially, people would think they're winning just because of skill upgrade, okay? They can out-skill opponents, they can just win a lane or they can win fights. But actually, I think if you look at their wins nearly all come from games where they have better vision control than the opponents. Like when I looked at all the games that they were dominating, it's where like Crumbs had like one certain part of the jungle that he had super well warded, and they could just catch people over and over in the mid game there. Then the game that they like had more a closer game against TSM, they had more suspect warding, like you went for that Baron where you had no vision whatsoever, and that was a fight that could have potentially lost you the game. And then finally the game against Curse that you did lose was the game where they just got ahead and they actually targeted Crumbs the whole time. They were stealing all his buffs, they were counter-jungling him. I Will Dominate had super deep wards, so he could tell where Crumbs was going all the time. It seems like vision is like the key element that's been putting Dig ahead. What do you think, Zion?
I think vision's just the key element to winning any game. It's with the way Season 4, like the anti-snowballing measures in general, like the only way I feel to close out a game against a team is to just have the vision control, because that's what allows you to just make better decisions and rotate before other teams do. And if you, I don't know if you guys heard the stat, but Crumbs during the Super Week bought more wards than the whole LMQ team bought as 5 on his own.
which is very telling, isn't it, about I think the long-term play of LMQ. That's like a massive problem.
I also noticed,
but also great for you guys.
This
as
is
long
why
as
I wanted
Crumbs
to
doesn't
ask,
need the items.
This is why I wanted to ask about the vision issue, though, because I noticed your team in general bought wards. Like, there was times when it looked like every time you backed in the mid-game, your item slots would be full, because whoever else would have wards. You'd have a ward, Shifter would have a ward, someone would have a pink ward. Was this like a concerted effort? Was it like the idea, like, this is what the area we're going to focus on? Is this just what you should be doing anyway if you're a good team?
Yeah, I think just warding and buying wards when you back is just a good habit to have, and it all starts with having a good understanding of the game and just understanding why you do what you do, like why do you buy wards and things like that. And once you understand, you just want to do it even more. I feel like before I'd be like, oh, I have to buy wards, like why do I have to do that? That's like 75 gold. Why am I putting that down? But I don't know, as I got a better understanding of the game, I'm just like, wait, I need these wards, like I'm getting these green wards out kind of deal.
Well, also, yeah, I think that you really can't overestimate that. And someday CLG will learn how to sell Doran's items and replace that slot. That's my dream. The CLG dream.
That's definitely the worst. I'm like, man, I really don't want to sell this Doran's blade. Guess I have to.
So what do you think overall of this aspect of their game then, Monty? I mean, this is an area that if you look, like when I looked at the other teams in LCSNA, I think Dig, okay, statistically right now, they're going to be the best in terms of vision because they won all the games and all that. But I think if we just looked long term, okay, so Cloud9 are going to be very high up there. They must be top 3 just in terms of this area of the game, right?
I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't looked at the statistics, but it wouldn't surprise me if they bought more wards than any team in the NALCS. I think that's probably true. Their vision control has been very good, and it's one of the strong points. So how did you, because Dignitas used to be just terrible at this, so how did you flip the switch on this so quickly in terms of your vision control? Because is it something about the fact that you guys were all willing to learn because you got 2 new members in this team, so it kind of just reset the team mentality and everybody just tried to learn to play the game, so it allowed you to make some very fundamental changes like this?
Yeah, I kind of feel that we are somewhat a new team, but I think everyone kind of had the right idea. But when you have just all these strong lanes and all these strong players, it's really easy to make the transition to doing the right thing. It's just have the right attitude. I mean, I feel like we have everything we need right now to become one of the best teams. And yeah, it's just, honestly, I feel really happy currently about the way things are working out. And yeah, I just feel we have like the perfect formula we need. And we didn't have to work that too hard to get the right vision control out. We just, I just think, again, the biggest thing is understanding why you're doing what you're doing and what you need to do to win. And everyone on our team understands that. So,
because like another thing is when you add in like having a good strategical sense, well, I think also this Dig team, if you look at it, probably has like the most threats of any team in NA right now. True or false, Monty?
Yeah, I mean, I think
they have a solid 2 every game minimum, possibly 3.
Yeah, I think that the teams with the highest skill ceiling in NA right now are Dignitas and CLG. But I think that at the moment, in terms of threats, Dignitas is more fully realized on an individual lane level.
Then what advantage does CLG have over Dignitas?
I think we are better at late game shot calling, generally speaking.
Okay. Then you have to get to the late game then, Monty. They're winning games in like 25 minutes, 30 minutes. It's no problem, right?
To be fair, CLG is also winning games in 25, 30 minutes.
So basically, Monty's looking for that 50-minute drawn-out game with lane swaps, and that's where we will see the true value of Montecristo, yeah?
We'll find out this weekend, won't we? It's going to be great.
Thoughts, Zion?
I mean, I agree that CLG probably has a little bit better late game shot calling, but I feel currently we're probably a stronger team. I think Seraph still has improving to do, but he's getting there, and I could definitely see him becoming a solid top laner. I don't know. I've been watching some of CLG's games, and the game against Complexity, it seemed like they're very confident against them. Like I was kind of questioning the level 1 tier 2 turret dive. I was like, all right, I think that's a little
You weren't the only
unnecessary.
one, buddy. You weren't the only one.
But yeah, they definitely have been pulling out wins against lower tier teams consistently, which they hadn't been doing until recently. So I think CLG's definitely got a lot of room to improve, but I think they're one of the teams that can do it.
Okay, so we've got this game coming up. It's going to be CLG versus Dignitas. As I like to call it, it's going to be Bizarro Flame versus Flame Junior, because these were the match of flame on flame action.
Why can't I be Flame Junior?
Because we've already made Seraph that, because he wishes he was Flame, you know. You're Bizarro Flame because you're like Flame in the Bizarro world. Like you're a carry top laner, but you used to be for a team that sucked. That might not apply anymore. Okay, we might have to give you a new name if Dignitas continues this excellent record.
So what would my new name be? Just so I know
people
what
want
I'm
you to be
working
called
for here.
Brown Flame.
Brown Flame.
Yeah, that's what people want you to be called.
I like that better than Bizarro Flame.
Sorry.
I'll go with Brown Flame. Okay. I'll take that one.
So anyway, if you're going to face up against Seraph, here's the thing, okay? I've just had to sit through 6 to 8 months of interviews with top laners, all hiding behind this shit of like, well, I don't really 1v1 in my lane. You shouldn't judge me against the other top laner, what his score is. I'm not going to kill him. He's not going to kill me. You know, we just play over here and then we join our teams and that's what we do over there. So no one wants to be compared, okay? No one wants to say I'm a better top laner than him. He's better than me. I'm good in this area. I'd kill him. But now we're in an era where we can see some champions. We can actually get some kills. Like I saw in the game against, who was it? Let me think. I forget who it was, but you were playing on Shyvana, and you who was it you were playing against where you kept 1v1ing them and you got kills a bunch of times in the top lane?
Oh, are you talking about this last week when I was playing Irelia against Ackerman Shyvana?
Ah, that's right, yeah. And you just kept going for kills 1v1, right?
Yeah, I got that 360 no scope with my ulti. That was
exactly.
Pretty
So,
nice.
so you're a player who likes this style, okay? So come on.
I definitely love 1v1.
You're gonna get it in on Seraph. You're gonna show him, welcome to NA. You know, I'm the superior flame knockoff.
I definitely think I have a good chance of winning, but I think he's been improving a lot. I think the first time I played against him in scrims, he didn't understand some of the matchups that well. Like for example, no one in Korea really plays Trundle. So when I played
Impact,
yeah, except for Impact. So it seemed like he didn't have a good understanding of how to play that matchup. But I think he's been learning at a rapid rate, and I'm pretty interested in playing against them. We'll see what happens, but who knows? Maybe it'll be one of those 2v1 switcheroos where we're farming the jungle for the first 10 minutes. Might want to get a machete instead and 2v1 the jungle.
Yeah, obviously we were having issues as well. We started scrimming later than everybody else, so I wasn't very confident going into the first week, but I felt a lot better after our scrims this past week going into week 2. Did fine. Won both games in 30 minutes or less. So wasn't too big of a challenge, and should be fun this next weekend. I mean, we have to play both you guys and Cloud9, so it's a good test this week for CLG.
So one of the areas that I noticed was a good discussion point to have, since Zion's played in a team with Shifter for a decent amount of time now, and they were famously the two people everyone suggested were the stars on Coast of Air. These are the players who were in our bad teammate prison, which Zion denies exists, but I believe we have the location.
It's like the CIA. Zion's like the CIA. He denies that the prisons exist.
Yeah. He's like, no, we didn't have anything to do with that coup in South America. They just did that naturally. What are you talking about? They're guns that came from our country? I don't know where they got them. Maybe stole them or something. I don't know. Oh, did that benefit us? Well, that's just a coincidence. Anyway, so the reason I bring this topic up, though, is there was a debate to be had about Shifter before he joined Dig, and it went like this. Okay, he's the star of his team, he always does well. But then if you looked a bit closer, he does well in late games they're losing. So then you have to ask, okay, is he just that much better than everyone in the whole of the region? And actually, I think there was a case to be made that sometimes he had that sort of a defensive style. It actually reminds me a bit of when Froggen was in the EG lineup when they dropped off a bit. And he kind of just felt like, if I have a chance for a kill, I'll go for it. But if I don't, I'll just play safer and like force the opponent to do something crazy. Or otherwise, I won't die, but also I can't make the crazy play because that might lose the game for me. And I think actually, the reason this is an interesting topic to bring up now is you could bring that as a criticism when Coast is losing. Like maybe he should be going more all out and try and win a couple more games. But in Dig, he's doing the same style. It's working even better here. Like he's only died something like twice in all of LCS so far. And he's still playing those champions that you can get that criticism for if you play Ziggs or Nidalee or what's the other one, Lulu. Ones where you can basically just run away or fucking hide from a mile away and never have to like get hit. But it's working. What do you think of Shifter's play this season, Monty?
It's been really solid so far. I mean, everybody knew he was a really good mid laner.
Was that criticism legit though? I think you've said something along those lines before, right?
No, I have not. I think that that's how you play those champions, and that's what you're expected to do. So I definitely do not think that criticism was ever
my
legit.
mistake. Sorry, guys. I just asked the coach of CLG, who coaches Link, into his like 17. In fact, Link plays the javelin. You know, he actually does Olympic javelins in game with Nidalee. Like he doesn't actually engage. He's like, I'll just throw this. Whoa, 60 meters. No attack range. I died. I only had one death, so it was my fault, guys. Dexter, you fucking idiot.
We love our long range utility mids in CLG.
It's true. Okay, but is this the style for him to play in this team, you think?
I think it's just a good style to play generally.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what champion you're playing. If you're something more aggressive like a Zed, you're not going to sit back and just farm because you need to make the play. If you're a champion like Ari, you're not just going to farm because you need to make aggressive plays. If you're a champion like Ziggs, all you need to do is farm and you'll win the game because that's how strong Ziggs is when it gets to late game. So there's no need to be aggressive. There's no need to risk losing the game off trying to make a play when you don't even need to.
Okay, so another member of the team I want to talk about, a favorite of the show actually, because it's one where Monty likes his personality, but I'm not sure if Monty was entirely sold on him as a player before, and it's Crumbs. Because I've always claimed that, like, from watching Dignitas last season when they weren't very good, I always thought Crumbs was one of the standout players of the team, and he actually gave them a chance to even win games. So we talked about vision. Not only has his vision been really awesome in the split so far, but I think if you even look at his champion pool is so underrated because no one would look at his play and go, wow, what a beast mechanical player. He's got all the skills. He's insect. Like, he's not that sort of player, yet he can play all the mechanical champions. And I noticed there's been multiple games where your team would ban out nearly all the mechanical champions against another opposing mechanical jungler. And then he would first pick like a Lee Sin or something. So he would try to take even more away from them. Was this something conscious? Is it just, how did that come about, do you think, Zion?
How do I think the jungle champion pool came about?
Like
or what?
Crumbs' jungle champion pool. Because usually those sorts of players, they just either ban them out and they stay away from them, or if they first pick that and they've banned them out, then they're gonna have to perform on the Lee Sin or something if they're not that great mechanically. What do you think of Crumbs in this sense?
I just think if you're a good jungler right now, you're most likely playing Lee Sin and Elise. I think like every good jungler should be playing Lee Sin because I think he, if played well enough, is the strongest jungler. And I just think Crumbs does a really good job on those champions. And I think a lot of reason certain players don't get a lot of credit like Crumbs is because a lot of their impact is unseen to the regular spectator. What most people see are like, wow, look at Shifter. He's getting so big and he's just like one-shotting people with Ziggs bombs. And what they don't realize is Crumbs is putting a lot of map. He's getting a lot of wards out. He's making a lot of plays. And I think people are beginning to see that. But before, they didn't really realize his impact on the team and the game.
Well, you say that, okay. So I have to ask you a question now because you're such a nice guy. You don't want to go in on anyone. If good junglers should be playing Lee Sin, they should be playing Kha'Zix, they should be playing Elise, Eve, these champions, then does that tell us anything about the play of the Odd One last split?
Yeah, I don't think Odd One was playing that well last split, but what Odd One lacked in mechanical skill, I think he was kind of the rock for the team. He kind of always played well in team fights and that kind of deal, but I definitely agree that Odd One was not that good of a Lee Sin, but I hadn't seen it in the I'm not sure if he even played it on the ALCS, so I can't say how good or bad it was, but I guess he wasn't confident enough in it to play it. But yeah.
Ooh, so this will bridge us nicely into talking about the rest of the NALCS, because you guys have you've played every team now except for CLG, I believe. Yes, I think that's true.
Yeah, every team but CLG.
And so let's talk about some of the roster changes that you've actually played against, and we can bridge this with TSM, because what I found hilarious was when you guys played TSM, and you mimicked the Cloud9 bans from the first game, and they still didn't last ban Lee Sin, and you guys first picked. I was like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah,
I was like,
I was
what?
definitely
and our game
surprised
against
by the
TSM too,
pick.
where they like randomly picked Leona, and like showed their entire pick ban phase when they had last pick. I was like, what are they doing? Like their pick and ban phase is just. It's just a disaster right now. Like I agree.
Shocked. Their pick ban phase was very bad. I was surprised that usually
I want to know the team thought in that. Did you think that was going to work? Were you guys just sitting there like chuckling to yourself, being like, haha, it worked again?
Yeah, as soon as we saw the Volibear, we're just like, all right.
They picked Volibear into Ziggs.
Yeah, we had Lee Sin, Ezreal, Jax, and Ziggs. Like the only way they could possibly initiate a fight was Volibear flashing on us, and there was just like, I was very surprised by the Volibear pick. I thought they might have had some sort of plan for the bans, but
not only that, didn't they pick Volibear like fairly early in rotation? Like, bro, they just took all your junglers. I'm not sure you have to pick that early.
Yeah.
They picked it into Ziggs. That is like the most baffling thing when you have that much peel from Ziggs. You were just like, okay, and you filled out the rest of your comp with like Nami and stuff, so Volibear could never get on top of you ever. But it's not just that. It's the fact that they had already dealt with this ban phase where they're used to. They saw Cloud9 ban 3 junglers on the blue side, and then they didn't ban Lee Sin, and they ended up with Jin Zhao in that game. Like. What? Okay, so how do you think TSM is going to do for the rest of the season? Because not only is their pick ban phase like in desperate need of help, it's the body that's like lying on the ground bleeding out right now, and it needs like emergency surgery and some triage. But like they're players as well, because these roster swaps don't seem to be going great for them.
I'm not really sure how their coaching staff works, but I think they might need some sort of change there or some sort of addition. I'm not even sure if they have a coach or what. I'm not really an expert on the TSM situation, but I feel like they need some sort of. They definitely need more help on their picks and bans, or to take it. I don't know how seriously they take their picks and bans. So I think they definitely need some sort of change to their picks and bans. And playing against them, I was down like 50 CS in 4 levels, and
right. Obviously, for this part of the show, they will be frozen, and we'll just talk for the rest of the time. Whatever, we'll get it finished.
So we were talking about TSM.
Yes,
and
we were talking about TSM and their roster moves.
Zion went on. He was pontificating.
Yeah. How do you think TSM will do for the rest of the split, Zion?
Like I was saying before, I think TSM needs to make some major changes if they want to get better, because not only is their shot calling really iffy at the moment, their pick and ban phase is just like Volibear. That's like, do I need to say any more? Volibear.
Their pick and ban phase is Volibear. It's good. I like it.
That's why I meant, by the way, that comment earlier. That was the bizarre thing as well. So you've already had all your champions that you play banned out. They've picked their jungler. Like, why pick Volibear even before the last pick? Like, no one's going to take that away, right?
Yeah, there's really no need to pick Volibear earlier.
You think was just like they just froze and they were like, fuck, what do we pick? And then they just, I'm going to pick this now.
Yeah. I don't think their thought was, oh my god, they're going to take Volibear, guys. Let's get it right now. Maybe it was like more like, I think we're fucked. Like, we don't have any junglers.
What happened to like there were a lot of potential picks, like Nocturne and Vi would have been much better picks into Ziggs in that situation. Like Volibear just seemed like so random.
Yeah, it seemed very random. Like, as soon as we saw the Volibear pick, we're just like, all right.
But here's the problem with that, okay? Because obviously now we talk a bit about Amazing, because he had all this hype coming over. The problem is he clearly is a good mechanical player, but because he played on a bad team, I actually get the sense from seeing the way he's been banned out like this, like once you get past those 4 champions, there clearly is nothing else he's really strong on at the moment. It makes me wonder if playing on that bad team allowed him to look so good, because you have to realize on his team, famously, like they focused all around Forgiven and they tried to get their AD carry to like carry the game. And so people are going to try and neutralize that player, you know. They're not going to go super hard at this one player. Plus, it's so rare on a team with good laners like TSM has that you would ignore Bjergsen completely, ignore Dyrus, ignore Turtle, let's just go all at the jungler. So it seems like these NA teams, and you're one of them, Zion, have a sense that if you do this, then you can kind of neutralize Amazing, right?
Yeah, when I first heard Amazing was moving to TSM, and I saw that like hype TSM Amazing video, I'm like, wow, this guy, look at his Lee Sin. He's going to come in here and he's just going to wreck everyone. And then like he played in the LCS, and honestly, he's just not as good as I expected him to be. I thought he was just going to be one of those one of the top 3 junglers in NA, and it doesn't really seem like that at the moment to me.
Who would you have above him at the moment?
I think Crumbs, Meteos, and Dexter.
Agree 100%.
He's better than, for example, the LMQ jungler.
No, I don't think he is.
I'm not sure. Like LMQ and honestly, they both seem pretty lost in terms of what to do later on in the game, but I'm not sure which one's worse or which one's better at that point.
I wanted to ask you, actually, when you were doing these bans, like these different bans I noticed, is there a degree to which you will play that game where, for example, let's say you picked Lee Sin and then they picked something else, then sometimes you're going to put the Lee Sin top lane anyway and give Crumbs something else jungle, or maybe you'd even do Kha'Zix's top lane and try that, so they can't even be sure which you're picking in the jungle. Is that even a factor now?
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely a factor. I mean, if you look at Cloud9, that's what they're doing. They had like the Kha'Zix pick, and people thought, hey, Kha'Zix jungle, but they actually put Kha'Zix mid. How strong of a pick that is, I don't really think it's that strong of a pick, but Cloud9 did it, and it worked out pretty well for them. So
in your game you played Cloud9, you actually did a similar thing to Amazing here. You forced Meteos so that the only one of the strong 4 now he could pick was Kha'Zix, right? Because you first picked Lee Sin and you had Elise and Eve banned, I think. So he had to pick Kha'Zix, essentially. And that game really worked out. Like, Meteos had no impact on the game. What do you think was the factor there? Was that the plan going in, to get him onto that champion?
I don't honestly remember the pick ban phase that well, but when I think about the game, I just remember that Crumbs made a play where he queued the blue buff and he warded over the wall, and then I think Hai saw the ward, but he still decided to walk towards a level 6 Lee Sin, and then he just it seemed like he gave us first blood, and then after that it seemed like Cloud9 lost all control. Honestly, it seems like Hai's slumping at the moment and he's not playing that well. So Cloud9 still looks very strong in terms of their decision making and stuff like that. But it just seems like Hai isn't playing that well at the moment.
Well, the issue too is that if Hai slumps, it really does take down Cloud9 a lot, because he is such a dominant voice in that team shot calling, in addition to being traditionally, we see in the current meta, the mid laner has a lot of weight on their shoulders to carry and to make plays around the map. And so it seems like if Hai is the one who's slumping, then that just causes the entire team to really go downhill pretty fast.
Yeah, I definitely think mid lane is the most important lane in the game right now. I mean, and I think it's just, if your mid laner's not playing well, that's really bad, because I feel from mid lane you can just control the whole map, I feel best. More than any other lane. And if they're having Hai on champions like Kha'Zix, that's kind of risky, I feel, compared to other picks. But they did pull it off pretty well against LMQ, but I'm not sure how well that will work if he consistently continues to play Kha'Zix.
So it sounds like you're favoring the kind of like supportive mid meta that people are playing now. What's funny though is I've seen that's one of the criticisms people keep giving of Bjergsen when TSM lose. They say that why does he continually play these supportive champions when they want to see him like, at his best, like owning people with assassins or going really aggressive? And in his team, could a case be made for it? I mean, you look at their team right now and they're kind of struggling for threats. Like, while Turtle's off his game, Dyrus is just Dyrus. He's not going to carry the game 1v9. Bjergsen's the guy who has to carry, right, in that current lineup?
I agree that it kind of doesn't feel like Bjergsen's meta, but I don't necessarily think mid's the support kind of champion thing. It's just I feel Kha'Zix isn't really that strong mid. It's why have Kha'Zix mid when you can have him in the jungle? And then there's all these strong picks mid right now, like Lulu. And if you want to play a melee mid, like why not play Yasuo?
Yasuo is very strong. Yeah,
I feel like if you're gonna play any type of melee carry, it's just Yasuo is I feel better in almost every aspect mid than Kha'Zix.
If you had to guess, and don't just tell me because he's your teammate, at the end of the split, people will be saying Shifter is better than Bjergsen.
People are already saying that right now. So
I mean, how it's going right now, that's the trend, right?
Yeah, I definitely think Shifter's playing pretty well, and Bjergsen hasn't been having the best games. But again, that kind of reflects on how your team's playing. But yeah, it definitely seems like the way our team's going, Shifter's playing like he's the best mid, and Bjergsen isn't.
Monty, come on, embrace the hate within you. Let it seed and germinate out into the world again. It's a chance for you to say something about my boy Bjergsen. What do you think?
I think that Bjergsen, I think that the entire TSM is just lost right now, and that it's very difficult to judge Bjergsen because it's just bad. It's just a mess. And we talk a lot about in League of Legends about jungle mid synergy. That doesn't really seem to be happening. Their pick phases is not allowing Amazing to even get on like real junglers, basically. So look, I think Shifter's performing better right now too, but I don't think we can just say Bjergsen is slumping. I think that we can say there's so many factors that TSM is having problems with. And I want to go back too and say, Zion says, well, they may be getting some new infrastructure in place in order to help this situation. But how much is that going to help? We're already into the split. This isn't something that you can just change like that. In order to actually fix the problem, takes time, takes a lot of effort, fixing the shot calling, fixing habits. These are all things you can't get together immediately. So at this point, you have to ask, I'm not saying it is too late, but it really is a concern. Is it too late to actually fix these things by the time that the playoffs roll around? Because you don't have the luxury right now of a break to say, okay, we're gonna do some more experimental stuff to try and fix things. You have to be able to perform every single week at this point, and that means that drastic changes are extremely risky.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at TSM from just look at them from any angle. Like, why are they winning? Why is TSM so good? Bjergsen would win his lane, Dyrus would win his lane, Turtle and Xpecial would win their lane. And they just translate that into wins every game, and I don't feel that's the case now. I mean, there's just so much has changed. Like, it's not always those... At the beginning of last split, it had lanes were matched. It was always 2v2, 1v1 every game because of the way trinkets were, and now there's 2v1s, and a lot of it comes down to understanding what to do next and basically your shot calling. And I feel TSM's lacking in their direction in the game a lot, and that's really showing the split. And
that's the hardest thing to fix about any professional team.
Exactly. I definitely agree with that.
I think that it's optimistic, not impossible, for everybody that starts flipping out in case TSM fixes this problem. It's not impossible, but I think it is, having worked with the team on this for nearly a year at this point, since I've been CLG's coach, it does take a lot of time and effort.
What I find interesting, though, is last week we had a discussion where we tried to, even though only a week had passed, we tried to rank, like, sort of do a tier list of NA, like who's where and who is a definite to get into top 3 for Worlds, who's like on the fence, who's going to be battling who for which spot. And our conclusion we came to was, okay, Cloud9's still the best, they're for sure going to come first. Then it gets harder, like CLG maybe second, third, but then for the third spot, yeah, now you've got a whole, there's maybe 4 or 5 teams. Actually, after this last week, again, it's not that many games to be certain of. If I had to guess, I'd say that I think the top 3 is fairly set. Like, in fact, I think it's the other way. I think now the top 3, I can't really tell who is better because it seems like Cloud9 are still lacking something. Like, not just high though. Like, it seems like Balls hasn't played the same game, partly because of the fact Meteos hasn't been able to impact all of the games that they lose in the same way. Because if you remember, Meteos would always like live in Balls lane and get him going early, and like, you can see the knock-on effect if even one player's off.
I think I can honestly say that I don't think Cloud9 is going to get first place this split unless they just start playing better. Especially, I feel High is just... I feel he's been in a slump, and he definitely just I think he can be good. Like before, he was really strong when he was in the right meta, but right now it seems like things aren't clicking that well. And I think there's a higher chance that Dig, TSM, or even CLG or even LMQ would get first over Cloud9 from what I've seen recently, because I don't know. I think Cloud9's shot calling and decision making has always been very strong, it seems like it's not getting that much more amazing. I think other teams are catching up in terms of shot calling and all of that, but in terms of mechanical skill in that, it seems like Cloud9 hasn't been improving that drastically, while I feel other teams have been more so.
Well, that's the thing too, is that any team that's on top is eventually going to slump and not be there any longer. It's the inevitability of sports, esports, anything like that. The rise and fall is just something that happens. It's very rare to have a team that's been as dominant for as long as Cloud9 or SK Telecom K, or to, I think, a lesser degree, Fnatic, because those seasons were closer. And that perhaps this is Cloud9's time. That day was coming eventually, right?
I have a question for you, Monty. Maybe you can give me some insight on this. So I heard a point they made in one of the LCS games where Cloud9 was playing. And no, it wasn't Cloud9, it was some other team was playing. And they talked about that quote that Reckless said after the All-Star game, where he'd said that the thing that was so hard about playing SKT was that they made it so that you couldn't even know when you could farm a wave just safely. Like they would like cut half the wave and then you'd have the choice. Like they're going to group and go somewhere else and push a tower. So now you have a choice. Do you let the minions attack your tower? Do you go and defend the other tower? Like which do you do? Either way, you're going to lose something. Okay, you have to make... It's like they're forcing you into a reactive choice that can't win necessarily. In the past, a lot of the shot calling in NA, because a lot of the teams weren't so good and weren't so decisive, it seemed like you could win, and I noticed Cloud9 do this a lot, just by being the best reactive team. You could just sit back, play the game, and then when you notice them do something, right, okay, you took an advantage there, instantly we take the tower bottom, like we evened it up, or we take the dragon, immediately call. And a lot of what would allow them to get those small advantages was this type of play. Like, am I off base? Is this something to do, do you think, with where teams have caught up to Cloud9? Or the meta's changed?
Oh, the meta's definitely changed a lot, and we struggled with it in the first week as well in terms of the lane swapping. And I think the team that executed the lane swaps the best has been Dignitas so far. I think Cloud9 hasn't exactly caught up to that as well. But I have faith, just given the intelligence of that team and everything that they've displayed in the past, that they're going to be able to catch up with some of these decisions. I just think they're unused to having to look at other teams to learn, as opposed to just being innovative on their own accord. But in terms of that kind of play, of course, it's always more powerful to be forcing your decisions on the opponent and having them play reactively. So that's definitely always been true.
Which team? Well, actually, do you have any thoughts on this topic, Zion? I mean, you must have watched All Stars. Maybe you've seen some Korean games. What do you think about the way the game's changed in that sense, like reactive calling versus the decisive guy?
I think it's just always better to be the person making the decision rather than reacting to it, because if you're reacting to it, then you're slower. And I think being proactive is one of the keys to just being a better team.
You said in that comment that you thought even LMQ had a better chance of coming first place. Now, Monty's already said on this show he thinks that they're going to drop off. They're not as good.
Maybe not LMQ. Maybe not LMQ.
No, but you must have said it for a reason. What was suggested? What even brought that to your mind for a second there?
I just watching the LMQ versus C9 game. It was just, I feel there was a lot of mistakes from both teams, and
it was pretty sloppy.
Cloud9, I've always thought of them as the best team in NA, and have always been like, wow, their decision making and their just the way they move around the map is really good. But this split, it's just, I've been questioning how good Cloud9 are. But I definitely think if any team has shown how consistently good they are, it's Cloud9. So I don't think you can ever count them out. Like, yeah, I think there's a chance they'll get first, but honestly, I don't think they're as locked as they were before.
So one of the stats, okay, on OnGamers actually, one of our guys who does these stats articles published something today before the show went up, which was like a comparison of the old Dignitas last split and the Dignitas this split. And one of the things he noticed was that ZionSpartan participates in less kills than Cruiser the Bruiser, or has a percentage that's lower, but he's doing better in all the other categories. So as a result, it looks like, okay, it's the classic ZionSpartan split push the whole game while the rest of the group's up, okay.
Well, it's also it's also just a shift in the top lane meta. With the lane swaps, you get further behind earlier, so you don't actually have a choice about whether you're going to be committing into skirmishes because you're too weak and you'll just get blown up. So that's really deceptive because I think of how much the meta has changed and how delayed the top laner is in terms of grouping, as opposed to a more common 1v1.
Is in general though, is the aim to use that style? Is that like your strength? You see it as Zion? Would you rather be more of like the TP into the fight and 5v5ing guys?
I'd definitely rather be that kind of 1v1ing split pushing guy, but that's just how the meta is. It's how you play the game, and the best way to start from is playing the game the way people have done it right before, and then finding an even better way. Because if you just try to find a better way, then you can easily get very lost. But if you start off a solid foundation, it's pretty hard to mess up from there.
I have to say, Monty, Zion's sort of winning me over a bit here. Like, you know, he talked about Flame before. He likes to play the 1v1 Kai Jungles. He thinks he's going to beat Seraph. Dude, he even had those fucking flame glasses on when he came on the show. Like, this can't all just be coincidence, Monty. The universe is telling me something. I'm going to elevate him from Bizarro Flame to Brown Flame status right now in lieu of this game.
Yeah. You've been promoted.
Okay, so keep going.
Changing my name from ZionSpartan to Brown Flame, confirmed on Summoning Insight.
You better change.
I think Brown Flame's about as good a name, to be fair.
Yeah, I can take the name Brown Flame with confidence. That guy was a beast. Still is pretty good.
Yeah, let me think then. Let's do one last topic because we're gonna have to end the show a bit early. We've got to some good stuff though. I like the way we kept it like mainly around the guest this time. So let me think which the other team was. Okay, so let's talk about the loss you had to Curse then. Because like I said before, it seemed like a huge element of that was maybe they noticed the same thing. They just went super hard on Crumbs. It's like everything was based around fucking Crumbs' world up. And then ganking Zion top lane, right?
I definitely agree. I think the reason Crumbs got shut down so hard is because Crumbs only got one buff that game. But without going too far into depth, I just feel for example, at one point in that game, I flashed into the enemy team and cleavered them when we could have gotten a free Baron. Like, there was just a lot of mistakes that game, and it was why
does ZionSpartan play Mundo in that game? And like, if he can play Shyvana, he's got all these champions he can play. Why is he picking Mundo?
I also feel we had a poor draft that game. Without going too far into depth about our strategy.
We hit depth on this show, so yeah.
Yeah. We had a
show. Zion will announce his candidacy for the governor of California because his political doublespeak is getting pretty real.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty good at this. Guys. I'm getting pretty good at flaming people without actually flaming people.
See, if you're a team manager out there, you don't have to be worried. People can come on this show. They can say what they think without getting into trouble. You know. Let me think. Yeah. You have any final words on that topic?
I just think overall we had a poor pick in man phase, and there's a lot of mistakes, especially I don't think I had that good of a game that game either.
Okay, I think I know what the secret is. Here's what these other teams need to do in the league. Okay, so Dignitas got good when they kicked out their legacy player and made him the coach, and then they brought in a guy who used to do a parody account of their coach. So what these teams need to do, we need to get C9 Meteos Ego. We need to get him onto Cloud9. We need to get that's the move. And then we need to get I'll make a Saint Vicious's Ego, and then I can become the coach of the analyst of Curse, and we'll get Voyboy to be the coach of Curse. I think we can see the trend that we're going with here. Thoughts? It's not really I don't really think that correlates.
I think it's just a coincidence. I think it's just another coincidence.
Just all those coincidences that happen around Coast and Dig. I don't know. It must be like fucking Wacky Wednesday around there, dude.
Yeah. Nintendude died for our sins. Never forget.
No, yeah. Everyone never forget. Nintendude died for our sins over and over again. It was like Groundhog's Day or something. You know? He just kept coming back, and he was going to get it right eventually. Listen, guys, eventually he respawns, and it's the beginning of the spring split, and he's like, yes, now it's going to work. And then he dies again, but, sort of like Hindu mythology there or something. Anyway, let's just wrap the show up. I think we had a good show so far. Any final words from you, Zion? You wanted to leave the crowd with a message here from Brown Flame?
I just wanted to say thank you guys for having me on this show. Definitely glad that we could have some deep, insightful talk about other players without
but not too in depth. We didn't want to get too crazy with people.
Yeah, we didn't want to get too in depth.
Yeah. We were teasing them for the future show where once you win Worlds, you're going to come back on the show and you were going to tell us what really happened.
Once we come back and win playoffs and be like, yeah, who's right now, Monty? Just rub it in his face.
Oh, that's right. And I'll just cry here in Korea by myself.
CLG's getting relegated. We're winning playoffs. That's how it's
See, that's just the way things can change, in this world.
I think that's unlikely.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
No, in many ways, Zion, you guys blowing those games against Cole was the best thing that ever happened in your careers.
Time will tell.
I think it already has, mate. I think it already has. Okay. Any final thoughts, Monty?
Yeah, I mean, losing to Westrice, it's the next level strategy to elevate your career to the next level.
I know. Plus, what Zion knew was...
Ocean.
Yeah, he knew, listen, right, Ghost might ask for a lot of money because I'm like a really good player, but if I lose to Westrice, I'll probably get, like, Odie, you can get me for a bargain, bro. Look, I just lost to a guy from season 1.
The ZionSpartan discount special, the blue light special, after you lose to Westrice.
Give that man a break. He just got the LCS already. He just needs some time to improve, all right?
I see how it is.
Okay.
Right, I think that's the end of the show then. Aside from the fact that I was talking to two fucking portrait pictures for half the show, I think it went pretty well. The actual substance was there. Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone. Goodbye.